what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me, Chris Fry. We are the executive directors and what are we? Directors of the Foot Candle Film Society and the Foot Candle Film Festival. Correct? Did I get that right?
Correct. Yes. That sounds sufficient.
And co-host of Foot Candle Films.
Well, yes.
Here on the Mesh that we just already mentioned. So welcome everybody. This is our film review and discussion show. We get together about every week and talk about some of the latest new movies that have hit the theaters or your streaming boxes, give some reviews, and occasionally we give some news and other updates about things going on in the film world. But today, Chris, it's that time of year. It's the magic season is upon us where mailboxes are now full of film DVD screener copies for us to watch, thanks to the studios who allow us to see these a little early. So it really is one of the happiest times of the year for me. I don't know about for you, Chris, but just
it's like Christmas
running out to the mailbox.
It's
running out to the mailbox, or it's checking the inbox on my email to see if there's any digital screener links, and finding out what all films we need to be able to check out and see and review. So that's really what today is going to be. Is kind of, I feel like we're kind of in the magic season now with starting this week. We've got two films we're going to review. Instead of doing any other news or trailers, we're just going to do two full reviews of films, both of them ones that are either in theaters now or will be at least streaming very, very soon, like within the next few days online. But both of them are ones that, I dare say are early buzz for Oscar consideration. Would you say that's kind of a fair assessment of these two films we're going to discuss?
Yeah, I think so. They both have noted directors and have some stars attached. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll be discussing the two films are The Holdovers by director Alexander Payne. And then we'll also be discussing the film May, December by director Todd Haynes. Those two films, Paul Giamatti, the star of The Holdovers. And then we've got the combo of Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman in the film May, December. So we'll be talking about both of those films in a full review here as we get started. So Chris, which one do we want to start with? We want to start with The Holdovers?
Yeah, let's do The Holdovers first.
All right. We're going to give a review of the film The Holdovers.
Every year at Barton Academy, students, faculty, and staff depart the campus for a 2-week winter break. But there are always an unfortunate few who have nowhere to go for the holidays. They're known as the Holdovers.
Mr. Hunnam.
Hello, Mary.
I had you guys stuck with babysitting duty this year. How'd you manage that?
You know, he used to be a student, right? Yeah, that's why he knows how to inflict maximum pain on us.
I thought all the Nazis were hiding in Argentina.
Stifle it, Tully. You just earned yourself a detention, sir. Being here with you is already one big detention.
Director Alexander Payne is known for his films that satirize American society, often with dark humor. Some notable selections in his filmography include Election, About Schmidt, Sideways, The Descendants, and Nebraska. His latest, The Holdovers, stars Paul Giamatti as Paul Hunnam, a curmudgeon instructor at New England prep school that is forced to remain on campus during Christmas break to babysit the handful of students with nowhere to go. What did you make of Payne's latest effort, Alan? And did you feel it deviated from his trademark style, or just kind of, it's obviously an example of his trademark style? What'd you think of the
film? Okay. Well, let me go ahead and say this. I'll get to your question in a minute. I think the answer to your question is yes, it's within his wheelhouse, but this is probably the least biting humor, the least critical of society film that we've seen, although there is still that going on. But I think this is probably the warmest film I think I've ever seen Alexander Payne do, and that's a good thing, as I'll get to in a minute. Chris, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you because you asked what I thought about the film.
Sure.
So this conversation between you and I is going to go one of two ways. And I hope it's going to go the former. I hope it's going to go the former. If it goes the latter, this will be very disappointing. And this will be setting off. We're coming out of a Thanksgiving holiday season. I hope that the warmth of the season continues in this conversation. Either you're going to echo my feelings and agree that this is one of the best films of the year and it was a just absolute delight and joy to watch and experience, or you're going to not feel that way and you and I are just going to really end on some very disagreeable terms here. So I'm hoping when I turn the mic back over to you that that's where you're going to be on this. I had such a good time with this film. I think this film is wonderful. I think it is warm and human, and just the three main characters we follow are just so great and so engaging. I could spend so much more time with any of the three of them. It is a story of people who feel like they're on the margins of society, people who feel like that the things in the world are kind of conspiring against them to some degree, but it's also things that they admittedly have brought upon themselves, finding themselves kind of held over a Christmas break. The film went in different directions than I expected it to, just from, I think, some of the marketing and some of the promotion. I expected it to be a much more of a more ensemble piece with a larger group of students that were all going to be holdovers. But as you get into the movie, and this is not a spoiler, it really does boil down to three characters that we spend the time with the majority of the film. And I'm happy it went that direction because I feel like we just had more to work with these characters and more character development we could really spend on each of those three instead of a larger group that I was a little thinking that the film was setting us up to believe we were going to have. I thought all three of the leads were absolutely wonderful. This is a first time role for Dominic Sessa, who played Angus Tully, the young boy who, you find out is, I guess, the one main holdover in the title, although I could argue that all the characters in this movie are technically holdovers in some degree, having to stay at the school for that holiday break because of a lack of communication and concern about his own parents and his own family situation. Paul Giamatti as Paul Hunnam, the professor, the curmudgeon director, the professor, as you mentioned. Getting to learn more about him as time went on was wonderful, and just I love the way those revelations kind of seeped out of the film over time. And then Divine Joy Randolph, I thought was just excellent. She was so great as Mary Lamb, the chef, I guess the dietitian chef on campus, cooking the meals for all the boys, but she also has to stay on campus for that Christmas break. It was a wonderful film, Chris. Chris, I've already seen this twice. I saw it twice, actually in the same 24-hour period. I watched it twice. So if that tells you anything,
doesn't appear you could be any higher on the film.
Not really. So again, now Chris, I pass the baton over to you. You have a choice here. You can either make this a really, really warm, embracing conversation where we're both on the same page, or you could totally break this down and really make it, I don't want to say contentious because I'm not going to be contentious about it, but you could turn this into a more argumentative discussion, which, I'll certainly engage with you on if I have to. But anyway, Chris, I'm leaving it over to you. Where are you on the holdovers?
So the film to me was like a toned down version of Dead Poet Society that Payne used as a style exercise to basically mimic the look and feel of a 1970s era film. So you could think that if you didn't know anything and you weren't like up on actors, you just picked this movie up, or like somebody said, let's watch this. And you're like, oh yeah, this is like a revival film from the 1970s. So, I could see people levying the criticism that this is nothing more than kind of a, toned down Dead Poet Society without somebody doing like a bunch of comedy like Robin Williams. Still has funny elements, but is all about, people coming of age. Yeah. That said, I could see that criticism, and I could see how, especially from the movie's trailer that you alluded to, where it shows holdovers and there's several young men, you're like, okay, yeah, it's going to be them with this professor, and they're going to bond, and very different. But as you said, it does kind of slim down. Things happen, and it is just the main three. Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. Even though I do
Hey.
feel like it is kind of a toned down Dead, like I like Dead Poet
Yeah.
Society, but I think a lot
Yeah.
of the stereotypes and tropes that film now plays into, if you go back and revisit it,
Sure.
like I don't think this one I think sees those things coming and kind of dodges and weaves most of
Yes.
them, so they don't play out in some of the ways that you would expect. And that was pleasant for me. And yeah, I set it up intentionally about Payne making a certain type of film, and it's never bothered me that his darkly comic stuff, that's never really bothered me. But I know that that's a criticism that can be levied against him, is that his things tend to be all cold and stinging criticism and not be very warm. And I, like you, found this to be a refreshing change. I mean, there still is criticism of the
Oh, sure.
Vietnam War and people that have privilege.
Mm-hmm.
There's still lots of that going on. However, I think whether he intended to do it or whether it's just an outcome of the script, it doesn't harp on those too much. And actually, I feel like this could be, like a new Christmas movie that people may
Yes.
watch, because it could be one of those seasonal movies that's not your typical seasonal movie. It could be a new one to add to that canon that would be something different for people to see. So I had a great time with it. So
Yes. I mean, this is a film, Chris. You talked about the look and the feel of the film in the beginning of your talk there. And you're right off the bat. I mean, this film even kicks off with a very throwback 1970 circa credits at the beginning and production studio names and all of these things. And at first it was, I felt it was a little, I felt it was a little, what's the word I'm looking for? It
well,
was,
I could see how you could say it was a little jarring at first, because it's almost taking like it's making too much of a joke of it, and you're like, okay.
yeah, it was
the
a little like
logos,
on the nose, like, hey, look,
sure.
we're in the 1970s, so we're gonna, it's been done before, it's been done in other productions, and I felt like at first it was a little on the nose for me, and just was not setting me up for a good time, but yet the film's aesthetic is shot and looks like a film from the 1970s. I mean, it still maintains that all the way through.
Oh
And I'd
yeah,
say even the acting style and some of the performances are very much films from a film that we could have seen 50 years ago as well. I think that was very
yeah.
intentional, and I think it held tight throughout the production. And the use of music, of course, the music,
Sure.
obviously dipping into songs from that era. I admire the fact that it didn't rely on the standards. You would expect a film like this. I mean, the needle drop, as many 1970 circa songs as possible. And it did, but these were not songs that you would recognize necessarily, or ones that you would automatically say, oh yeah, of course they're playing that song, for this time period. I really admired that as well, trying to keep it very, just a little more authentic, a little more natural feeling. Just everything about this film just worked. It just worked. I mean, the humor was not over the top. It was not, I can't think of a single bust out loud scene or moment. A couple lines of dialogue had me pretty good. It's light humor when it needs humor, but in the drama, I felt like was never too heavy and never got too overwhelming. This is really about just three people, different walks of life, different situations in their life, different status symbols of their own life, thrown together and kind of making some things work between them. Definitely the relationship between Paul Hunnam and Angus Tully. You see how that develops, and it doesn't go exactly the way you would expect it to, like you said. Yes, there is an ending that I could see the Dead Poet Society argument a little bit. It's a much more realistic Dead Poet Society ending than that movie gave us. Okay.
Right.
This is, yes, there are some similarities. There are some beats that, you probably have seen before and expect, but it just was handled so much more naturally and just so much more comfortably than I think a film that really just trying so hard to make this statement or reach this kind of pinnacle at the end. This film just handled it very comfortably and casually. And I think it's what made it so much nicer to enjoy. So I love Dead Poet Society, but I like this film more. So I think this film just works better as a character study of teenagers, of people, and that, again, Angus Tully, I think, is a fascinating character. I love his performance by Dominic Sessa in this movie. Crazy to think his first performance of his, I think he kind of has to carry the film. I mean, he really is, I feel like, the star as opposed to Paul Giamatti. And he does an outstanding job with this film. So, yeah. I don't know what else I can say positive here, but yeah, I got plenty.
No, Dominic Sessa, I think having him as an unknown, and having it be his debut, I think was really important because I think anybody else and the other kids that are there with him at the beginning too, I didn't recognize any of them. No. And I thought they actually, for the little time they had to be on screen, I liked how they each got some decent development, even though they weren't there very long. And actually, yeah, I like that. And I think it was important for him. I like the fact that he wasn't unknown. So that way he wasn't bringing any baggage of, oh yeah, this is a typical type character he plays, just a very unusual. He's got a very striking face and everything, and him to be up against Paul Giamatti, who, he's very, very Paul Giamatti. He's, if you've seen him once, you recognize him, type thing. So for those two, very strong performances to be up against each other, I thought they were equally matched, and yeah, it was nice to see something that's to have an unknown come out and have that kind of breakthrough. I do want to touch back briefly. I said like Payne and how he criticizes like the tone he has. One of the things that I'm not going to ruin anything because this happens early in the film, but it would be too easy to say he was just taking down, like, let's say, people with privilege, because the people at the school, it is a private school that's like it's not a college. So it's like, I guess 8th grade through high school or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you could say all the kids there are spoiled or just, they're, all these like typical tropes you would go. And yeah, there is some of that going on there. But the way it goes from being like 4 or 5 kids down to 1 kid is basically one of the kids who is a very rich kid. He provides a way for all the other kids to go with him on a ski vacation. Mm-hmm. And it's like, hey, my dad came to get me. All of us can go. And so, but to me, he wasn't doing that to make himself seem cool. I think he was generally trying to be nice. So I thought that was actually kind of an anti-Alexander Payne thing that people may usually say he's just really harsh on everybody. But yeah. I thought it was something that the one boy, was he also a member of the football team there? He was somehow sports associate.
Yeah, he was an athlete. And, the 5 kids that started out are 5 holdovers. I mean, you're right. Yeah. Only one of them, I think, really fit kind of that critical stereotype of a spoiled brat kind of kid. The other ones are all really good people, good kids. And, right. Like you said, we got just a little taste of some development of each of them, but they're all good people. And I mean, I think even though, of course, the Paul Hunnam, the professor, and even Mary Lamb in the cafeteria, both kind of are always talking snidely about the kids and how spoiled they are at the school. We don't really see a lot of that. I think, and again, I'm not saying that there's not spoiled mentalities at these schools, but sure. I mean, I think again, they showed them as humans. They showed them as real people. And I think, right. For the most part, they were all really good kids and good people. And, they're going around asking each of the kids, like, why were they there? Why were they not? Why were they there for the winter, for the holiday? And of course, one of them, parents live in, Japan and, couldn't right. make it back. The other one, his parents were on a mission trip, and so it's like, you kind of like, okay, yeah, I get it. I mean, I don't feel like it's just these parents just abandon these kids. Now, unfortunately, that did happen in one particular case, and that's the one we follow most of the time throughout the film. So, right. Yeah, I don't think the film is really eager to say we're just going to skewer the whole, the whole private school entitlement, society. It just like you said, it had a little bit to say about the Vietnam War, but not beat you over the head with it. It mainly was relaying its thoughts on the war through Mary Lamb and her son who you right. find out very early on had passed away in the Vietnam War serving his country. And he had been a student at this school beforehand, is why she's working there. It was to give him that education that he needed, but he still ended up going in the military. they did make some comments about how it's obviously a little bit of a perceived racial thing that, he was the one that actually went to Vietnam where all these other kids didn't have to go because
correct.
they were, a little more privileged in their life and the way they looked. So obviously they didn't have to go. So there's some commentary there, but it never beats you over the head with it. It never feels like it's trying to make a political statement out of the film. Just
Right.
It was more the sentiments of the time, I think, and I think they captured them really well. So
Yeah, I would agree, and I think there's something they also, along this about race and privilege. There's a church service. I guess it's like the big Christmas service before everybody leaves campus. Kind of our final farewell or whatever before going home for the holidays. And the pastor or minister calls specifically out to Mary, saying, "We're all thinking about you, losing your son." And there she is. She's the black face in the midst of. There are other diverse people in the audience, but it's a lot of white people, and she's sitting there on the front row, and just the way they kind of use that in a way, you can tell, or at least I feel like she was appreciative of saying thanks for the sentiment, but yet she's also thinking to herself, yeah, you may be using me as a little bit of a token,
Yeah,
and
sure.
but they don't overplay it, and I thought that was a really good choice of the direction and the screenplay and everything. They throw all this stuff out there, but they don't rub your nose in it. So I appreciated that. I thought it was good.
Yeah, man, this film just worked. It just worked. I am highly recommending it to people. I think it is one that a broad swath of people can enjoy. I mean, I think it's, I definitely think this is something. I can't think of a group of people that I wouldn't want to recommend this film to check out and see. I think it works on so many different levels. Very, very enjoyable. I tried to look back and see, all the films that Alexander Payne has made. And of course, I love Sideways. I think that's a great movie. I like The Descendants. I thought that one was really, really great as well. I've got to say, I think this is my favorite of his films just because I think I don't know. I felt you feel good walking away from it. I felt good. And I don't know if I could say that with all of his other films, but felt really good with this one. I love Election as well, but Election's not exactly a warm and friendly movie by the end. So, this one just worked. It just worked all the way around. Yeah.
Yeah. I looking back over his filmography, which I was doing when I was writing the setup, I kind of came to the same conclusion that, yeah, this is my favorite of Payne's. I think just overall the performances, I think, he lets you know early on, yes, I'm trying to make a 70s film, trying to do that look. That was in the trailer. So you got a little sense of that, just the way they had like the narration and the text on the screen. But yeah, he follows through with it and it doesn't distract. To me, it only kind of adds. And I really liked it. I think that's what sets it apart from some of the others and like you say, you leave it with kind of a nice warm feeling. So that's nice. So yeah.
And I will not spoil these lines, but I will just say there are 2 or 3 lines at the end of the film that are some of my favorite.
Okay.
I will cherish and remember for quite a while. One of them being a insult hurled at a particular I guess the what do you call the guy at the school? The headmaster.
The dean.
Yeah.
Master, yeah.
There's a particular insult thrown that was, I thought, extremely effective. And
you mentioned that insult. You mentioned that insult. I actually only heard half of that insult because as it started happening, everyone in the theater was kind of on the same, and everybody started laughing. So I actually didn't capture the whole insult.
So because there is a dramatic pause halfway through the insult. So yes, a crowd laughing. Yes, you would have missed the second half, but it's really good. And then in the same scene, something to do with Paul Giamatti's eyes and a comment made to the young man, his student, just again works so well. And then a final confrontation between the professor and the student outside. Just wonderful, wonderful lines, wonderful scenes. So I'm, if you cannot tell, I am pretty hyped up on this film, even a little emotional on this film. I think this film just worked. I was, Yeah, found myself actually, the second time I watched it, I wanted to watch it and had my wife watch it with me just because I really wanted her to see it. And
Okay.
knowing kind of where the story was going and know what these characters were like, I found myself getting emotional watching the film even early on, just because I'm already knowing these people and just kind of reliving the story with them was just so great.
Sure.
So,
but now you've made me want to revisit it, A, so I can hear the other part of the funny insult, but B, so I can, kind of have the same experience, because I liked it the first time, and it sounds like that's only going to grow when I watch it again. I'll say, since you called out some good scenes with two of the three people that we've lauded praise again, I want to say a scene that really, really worked for me with Devon Joy Randolph, her character Mary, and this is actually really impressive too, because there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
It's her in a bedroom unpacking a box, and just what she's able to do with that. It's facial, it's the speed with which she does things, and it's just real, and it's well shot. It's just that for her is okay. And I don't know that could be an Oscar moment, because usually I like to do things with dialogue. So I'll probably choose other scenes, but that was just that was a really, really good scene. And it's pretty short, but a really, really good scene.
No, I mean, she is wonderful. She doesn't have as much dialogue. She doesn't have as much to do as the other two lead characters, but the time she's on screen and the quiet moments she gets to have are excellent. She's really, really good. I know there is some early supporting actress buzz discussion for her, and I would be all in favor in that. I think she absolutely warrants it with this performance. So,
agreed.
Okay. Well, that is The Holdover. Sounds like very positive. I might be more positive on it, but I think both positive no matter what, right? So
I don't know. We'll have to see what we end up rating it in Letterboxd, but I will say it is one of my favorites for the year. And it's one of those rare instances too, where because of critical buzz that I'd seen about it, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to see it and review it for the podcast. I was like, well, there's supposed to be something here with this. And so expectations can be kind of that dark cloud that can sometimes, even though I'm excited about a film, it can sometimes take away, because then it's not able to meet my expectations, which are high by the time I see it. So this film, actually, it met them and it exceeded it. So that always makes me happy, because I want to like all the films that we see. I realize that's not possible, but this one did it. So it's good.
Awesome. Well, that is The Holdovers, directed by Alexander Payne, starring Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa and Devon Joy Randolph. It is in movie theaters now. Don't know how long the theatrical run is going to be. It was released by, who is it released by? Is it released by, it's not Amazon, is it? Or
I think it was Paramount, wasn't it?
Oh, is it Paramount? Okay.
Because I feel like one of those logos was one of the old style logos.
You're right.
Yeah.
So it, don't know when it'll be available online streaming, but I do recommend, if it's in a theater near you, we're recommending you should go check it out and see it. I think it's a great film, especially here at the Christmas time. I think it really works for that. But if not, it should be online, I would say, but definitely by January, I would assume, available for viewing online. So
this podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
All right, Chris, well, let's go ahead and move on to our second review. So that was The Holdovers first. Let's move over to a film starring Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman, and directed by, it's Todd Haynes, right?
Yes.
I always get the Haynes mixed up. There's a couple Haynes in the, or no, Todd Fields is the other one I get confused.
Todd Fields,
the
Todds. Yes.
Yeah, this is the Todds. No, this is Todd Haynes directing, is the film May, December.
Kimmy, yeah. How do you choose your roles?
I want to find a character that's difficult to understand. Why are they like this? Were they born or were they made?
I thought you were taller. You look
You look taller on television, but we're basically the same size. Thank you for doing this. Well, I want you to tell the story right, don't I? They're sweet, aren't they?
We've been together for almost 24 years now. It's hard to trust that you're going to represent things as they were.
What would make a 36-year-old woman have an affair with a 7th grader?
Todd Haynes is a director known for playing with the medium of cinema and kind of bending, I guess, genre types, you could say. With I'm Not There, he made an unconventional biopic of Bob Dylan, using multiple actors, including Cate Blanchett, to portray the icon. His most recent film, before the current one we're about to discuss, was The Velvet Underground, which was a sprawling documentary of the experimental band featuring live performance footage that had never been seen before. With May December, Haynes does return to narrative storytelling. In the film, Natalie Portman plays an actress who visits a married couple 20 years after their tabloid romance to do research for a film that is based on their past. The married couple is played by Julianne Moore and Charles Melton. Alan, how do you feel this fits in with the films of Mr. Todd Haynes? And do you feel like he was doing something different or making a more traditional film? What was your experience with May, December? And you can actually give a little context with the whole May, December, what the title means as well, I guess.
Well, I can't speak honestly to how this fits in Todd Haynes' filmography, because I'll admit I'm woefully short on viewing a lot of his films. I did not see the Velvet Underground documentary. I did see I'm Not Here. That's the Bob Dylan one, right?
I'm Not There. Yeah.
I'm Not There. And I was not there mentally for that film. That one did not work for me. We showed that at our film society many years back.
Yeah, we did.
It's not a big fan of it. It just didn't work for me. It was a little too high-minded, a little too much thinking involved on that one for me to deal with. But so I can't really say, I've never seen Far From Heaven. I don't know. I do know Carol. Carol, I think, is a great film. That is one of his I saw that I do think is really great. But I can't speak to it in a bigger sense other than to say, alluding to a little bit more of the storyline here. What made this movie an interesting watch, and I think ultimately a positive watch for me. I'm giving this a positive review. I think it's a good film. Mainly because of the premise. I think the premise is just fascinating. So you kind of alluded to it a little bit setting up, but the idea that 20 years ago, there was a notorious tabloid romance between Julianne Moore character and then a much, much, much younger character who, as an adult, is played by Charles Melton. She had a relationship with a 7th grader, which I guess would be 13 years old.
He was 13. She was 36 at the time.
36. Yeah. So about 20, 23 years difference. But of course, the fact he's 13 years old, and that's obviously what sparked, crime. She's arrested for crimes. She's had to serve time for that. They obviously were in all the news and media and tabloids about that back then. So that was in the past. We never get any flashbacks. They're not interested in that. They're interested in talking about what does this couple look like now? Because it actually did bring up an interesting question. We hear about some of these stories in the news even today about these very, they're really considered rape when you're at that young an age of a child.
Right.
But to think that, okay, well, let's say these two people did mean to belong together for their life. And that's kind of the story we've got here in some way. So we're seeing them 20 years later and they are a married couple and they've got their own kids, and on the surface seems pretty good. Seems like it's a pretty healthy relationship, at least on the surface. And so I think it's fascinating to take the role of the Natalie Portman character who plays Elizabeth, an actress, coming in to spend a week or so with these characters, because she's going to be portraying the woman, Gracie, the mother, in a movie. We don't know if it's a TV movie or a movie or something to that effect, but she's going to be portraying her. So she's doing some research to kind of learn about Gracie and Gracie's husband, Joe, and a little bit about more about their relationship. To me, that premise is just fascinating. I love the concept. I love the conceit. But what happened here, what Todd Haynes is obviously interested in doing is, yes, exploring an interesting story, but there was definitely more that they wanted to accomplish with this film. It was, and I don't know, to me, it all hinges on the ending scene, which I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to get into, but I feel like this movie is a movie that it builds and it builds, and it's wanting you to get engrossed in this three-way relationship that's forming. But by the time it gets to the end, it obviously is also trying to make some commentary that I think is, I felt the ending you remember how we talked about the ending of Tar, remember the film Tar, and how the ending kind of took a little bit of a swerve and kind of had this very sarcastic kind of tone to it, where you find out Lydia Tarr, what kind of her last job is that we're building up to, that she's taken on. And it's a little tongue in cheek. I got a little bit of that with this last scene too. And I think that I was enjoying the film all the way through. I think the last scene kind of just really, really made me appreciate this film more. So again, I can't go into more without spoiling it, but I do think, I think everybody's acting at a great level here. I think the performances are really good. I think the premise is what carried the film for me, just the concept, the conceit of what this film's trying to explore. But it does have, in my mind, at least, my takeaway is it had a little bit more to say about Hollywood, a little bit to say about sensationalism, a little bit to say about how we perceive these kind of stories as a society. Had a lot more to say about that by the end, but anyway, Chris, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I like this film. I thought it was interesting and enjoyable, fun, tense, uncomfortable, but also a good watch. Chris, I want to hear your thoughts though. What did you think of May December?
So it's interesting. You set up the first review saying how if we disagreed about it, you were going to be a little heartbroken, but you could take it and we'd discuss it. And this film, you just right into saying how much you liked it.
Well, I liked it. I don't love this film, but I did like it. And I totally expect many, many people to have differing opinions than me, possibly even you. And I'm okay with it, because I'm not gonna fight for this film. I'm not gonna champion it. I just I could totally see how it also doesn't work for a lot of people. So,
well,
Chris, what's your thoughts on this?
The film to me was surprisingly bland. And I'm not saying the performances, you mentioned Natalie Portman, Charles Melton, Julianne Moore. Yeah, they're good. It wasn't that. I think, and it wasn't necessarily the direction was bad. I think the script itself, it comes down to that. It's like, it wasn't showing me anything that I feel like I haven't seen before. And also something that I haven't seen before that was done in a more interesting way. And I was never surprised at any, if you want to say twists or any events that happened. And actually the last scene that you alluded to, I hadn't thought of it in context of a Tar type situation. That's an interesting comparison as far as the last scene you see there. But for me, that film was more effective, I guess, with the last scene as opposed to this one that you mentioned last scene. This one, there was just really not a lot there. And I think also something that kind of took me a little bit aback was in the beginning, and I guess maybe I'm giving the film more credit than it deserves, but I don't think so, because I think Todd Haynes is talented and he does try different things in different films. And with this film, in the opening scene, well, one of the opening things they're doing is Julianne Moore's in a kitchen, and she's talking with somebody, and that one person leaves, and then you hear some dramatic music and a zooming in frame, like an Alfred Hitchcock type, sudden zoom into Julianne Moore's face as she's opening the refrigerator. And you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And she just says, I don't think we have enough hot dogs, because they're having a it is a birthday party? Maybe
or graduation. I don't know.
That's right. They're getting together for graduation. So it's a graduation party. So they're having a big party. Her husband, Joe, is out grilling, and you cut to a scene where there's plenty of food on the grill that he's grilling with hot dogs. So she needn't fear about that. But yeah, and I guess I was like, okay, is this going to be more of a, it's making commentary, but they were going to use some like tricks like that to kind of stylize a little more. And if they had leaned more into that, I think I would have found the film more interesting. But as it was, nothing really surprised me. Natalie Portman, like I said, she did. I think her performance was fine, but nothing about her character's arc surprised me. Nothing about Joe, Charles Melton's character, that didn't surprise me, and nothing about Julianne Moore's character surprised me. So much so that this whole thing is, I guess, over maybe a week's worth of time. She kind of comes as they're starting to celebrate their two children are graduating from high school. So she kind of spends the week, meets different people, talks to different people that knew this couple. And then there's the graduation ceremony. And kind of one of the last reactions or interactions that Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman have seemingly shakes Natalie Portman a little bit, so much so that she kind of like, I don't know, her reaction there kind of surprised me because I was like, I would not figure she would be as surprised as she seems to be, because I don't know if the way she's like always investigating and trying to figure things out about people, and just, I don't know, it kind of, I didn't really buy it. I mean, not to say it was a problem with the performance, just a problem with the story itself. So I guess I am easily said not as big on May December as you are.
And again, I'm not going to the mat for this film. I do think it's I don't think it's for everybody, and I don't think everybody's going to walk away feeling enlightened or feeling like it was a enjoyable experience. I personally just found myself fascinated with the premise. I found myself fascinated with the dynamics of this 3-person relationship. No, it wasn't surprising in any way, but I thought I found myself more invested in what was going on between these three. And I loved the melodramatic moments. And that's really what I think the director was trying to play off, is like you mentioned about the hot dogs. You don't have enough hot dogs. It had these sharp soap opera dramatic musical moments that would punctuate certain times. And I think you were left to believe whether it was really meant to show off anything dramatic happening in the film, or it was almost overplaying the drama, which I think is a little bit of what this film's trying to show, is that sensationalism, we as a society, we grab on the things that are sensational. We overplay it. We make it a bigger deal than it needs to be. I think that's what he's trying to say, not necessarily saying whether I agree or not, but just, I think that's his intent. And I think that this whole film is meant to be a little bit of a, let's over dramatize these things. And let's, you find yourself, you think you're in this extremely dramatic environment and situation, because here it is, this woman who is married to this kid that, is 20 some years younger than her, and who she met when he was 13, and all the scandal that was involved in that. And like, we're with them now. Obviously there must be some dramatic stuff happening. And well, there's not, not really. Now later on, some does develop. And I think, again, you said nothing with Joe, the husband, the young boy who's now a grown man. Nothing with his character really surprised you. I'll say I agree with you on the other two. Nothing really surprised me there. Him, I kind of expected a development path for him. It was a little surprising where he went for me in the story. And I found that intriguing enough. It was more curious. I found myself really curious with him as a character, and trying to put myself in his situations. Like, okay, thinking back over what you've been experiencing this last 20 years and where you are now in your life. There's a lot of things to explore there. And I think the film does an okay job of doing that. So overall, I found the setup and the premise interesting enough to make this a watchable movie for me, where I did have a good time with it. But again, fully understand it's not going to work for everybody, and it's not a great film. It is for me, it's a good film with some really good performances and a very, very interesting setup and premise to explore. So,
well, I think, the mere fact that I didn't find Joe's actions, played by Charles Melton, not a knock on him. I thought he did a good job in the role, just the character itself. I think that is the weak point of the film for me, because I felt like nothing that he did was surprising to me at all. I will say, and he has this hobby of raising butterflies, and that gave a sign to me early on that there was something going on with his character that I guess if I hadn't have read into it as much, then maybe it would have surprised me. I will say that towards the end of the film, one of the or chrysalis or whatever, the cocoon of the moth or whatever, it breaks and a butterfly hatches it. And I thought that was, it bothered me a little bit that I felt that was almost too symbolic of what had been happening in the movie. And I felt that was a trick, but it wasn't hit as heavy on the head as I thought it was going to be. They kind of used it, but then they let it go and they didn't hang on that image too much at the close of the film, which I thought they were going to do. And that was going to really be an eye rolling moment for me. So that was a little bit of an eye roll, but it could have been much more that kind of knocked it down a little bit. Plus, and I guess this was played for comedy, which is fine. Like you said, there are some comedic things, and maybe he is making statements about adding drama to what is a very real life type situation. There was a case of something like this actually happening where there was no fair, so but then adding like the zooms and the music to make things more dramatic, and there's nothing there to really make something dramatic of. So yeah, maybe that's it. I guess it is intentional. Did it always work for me? Maybe not. Wish maybe they could have leaned into it more. But I will say something else that I was just kind of like, okay. He's a parent now of a kid that's about to go off into high school, and he decides to smoke pot for the first time with his son that's about to go off to college. Okay, he decides to do that, but he also decides to do that while sitting outside on a roof, which, dude, maybe not. But there again, maybe Mr. Haynes is saying, look, this guy is now 20 years older, so he's, 33 or whatever, 36. He, should know better, but he didn't get to have the childhood because he was involved in this scandal. So I guess, but I felt that, I don't know. I was like, okay, that definitely is a memorable scene for me, but yeah, I don't know. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, no, let me just call out a couple other quick things really quick. Corey Michael Smith, familiar with him? I think you watched the show Gotham that was on.
Yes. And I wish, yeah. So Corey Michael Smith.
Yeah, he plays Georgie, which is a son of the Julianne Moore character from her first marriage, her more, quote, traditional marriage, I guess you could say, who is now basically the same age as her current husband. Which, his stepfather, kind of, he has an interesting role to play.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is that, his character of Georgie and Joe were classmates and knew each other. And now his stepfather is his age. But also, that's the interesting thing is that Joe now is the age that Julianne Moore's character was when, so it's like, can you imagine him now being with a 13-year-old?
Right. So, I mean, I thought they did a really interesting job of hearing the perspectives of other people in this relationship outside of the primary two. So we got to spend a little bit of time with Gracie, Julianne Moore's character, her first husband, played by, who was it? I had it up here a second ago. Is it D.W. Moffat maybe playing Tom Atherson? I think that's her.
Yeah.
I think that was her first husband in the movie. So you get to spend some time hearing his perspective, which I thought was fascinating kind of to hear. Then of course, Georgie is the son of that first marriage and who has obviously had some difficulty adapting to what has gone on in his life, and it has impacted him. And he gets to have a little bit more of a showy performance for that. Interesting characters. I think that all builds that whole premise. Not necessarily saying that the script and the plot worked perfectly to mine this environment, but I think the overall conceit of the film, the concept of the layout of the film, I thought was really interesting and interesting, fun to watch.
Well, I want to kind of double down on your thoughts on Corey Michael Smith playing Georgie. Now, granted, I guess this is not the kind of film Todd Haynes was interested in making, so I understand that. But I wanted more Georgie because and I guess I read a lot into his character because on Gotham that you mentioned, that TV series that he's in, he played the Riddler, and I thought he was perfectly playing this person that was really smart but yet unbalanced, and you could tell there's something. And with Georgie, the minute he was before I even recognized him because his hair is all curly and bleach blonde, and he's playing like a singer, and he's like, or he wants to be an aspiring singer or whatever. But when he has conversations with Elizabeth, Natalie Portman's character, the actress, his intensity, and I was like, dude, I know this guy from somewhere. Where have I seen him? Because he's using some menace that I am bringing with me from another experience. Like, what's going on here? So yes, I did watch this movie on a screener, so I was able to pause it and pull up Letterboxd, and I was like, oh yes, that's where I know him from. And I really liked him, and I guess he has two big scenes with Elizabeth, and I wish there could have been a little bit more, but I don't think that's what Haynes was interested in, because if anything, he's mocking that type of film where you have more of like a thriller nature. And that's kind of what I thought this was going to be, instead of a just flat drama with some comedic stuff in it, which I didn't expect comedic stuff at all. The mere fact that I guess it had been teased to me maybe in some promotional material more as like a thriller. And so that's kind of what I expected.
I didn't expect that at all. I expected it to be just a pure character study drama. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. So that could have hurt. But I did really like Georgie's bits in it, and I wish we could have had more.
Well, that is, I mean, look, I'm going to come out positive on May, December. I thought it was a interesting film, and I found myself fairly engrossed in the film all the way through. I do think acting, performance wise, was great. Direction, I think, was fine. I mean, I don't think there was anything I can really spot with the way the film was made that really stands out much. It was a pretty straightforward telling of story, other than trying to weave in some of those more melodramatic, over the top soap opera-ish type moments. I think that was very intentional by the director to do. But overall, I thought it was a good, solid film. So Chris is less enamored with it, understandably. And again, this is not the Holdovers. I'm not going to fight somebody on how good this film is. I get it. This film isn't perfect, and doesn't work for everybody. So I totally understand that. But I am giving a recommendation to May, December. I think it's a interesting watch. Chris seems to be fairly lukewarm to slightly negative on it. Fair enough. I think that's fine. They're not all going to be winners here.
I give it the 3 stars, I guess.
3. Okay. Well, three on your scale, Chris. Three's okay. 3's okay. This is 3.5 for me. It's a little better than okay. It was good. So I did enjoy it. Now the Holdovers, we didn't give a star rating to that, but I mean, I'm probably in the 4.5 star category right there for that. So
it is either, it's somewhere between 4 to 5. It may be at 5. I'll need to see it again, probably.
Yeah, see it again and see. I'm at 4.5. I think I'm pretty close to perfection on that. So all good. All right. Well, so May, December is coming out December 1 on Netflix, which is at the time of this recording, it's just a few days from now. So it will be available for anybody with a Netflix subscription to check out. The Holdovers that we mentioned and reviewed earlier, again, is playing in theaters, doesn't have a release date online yet. So check it out in theaters if you can. Otherwise, you'll have to wait just a little while to see it online. So, all right.
And I'll encourage people, if it sticks around in theaters long enough, I know we've made it through Thanksgiving, if it sticks around in theaters long enough as we get closer to the Christmas holiday and New Year's, if you're looking for a film that you want to kind of get out of the house, not for young kids, but you want to kind of take your parents to go see a movie, or want to go somewhere just to kind of get out of the house to see a movie, I would recommend The Holdovers if it's still around, because like Alan, I've said, it's pretty solid, and just supporting a smaller film like that, I think, could be something cool.
Just to put on my family parental sensitivity hat for a moment. The only thing about The Holdovers is it is a lot of language. There is a fair amount of some harsh language in it. That's the only thing that's really going to be just keeping in mind for family, or for taking parents, or taking anybody else. Just
I mean, this is not. This is high schooler and above. This is it's not a family film. It is rated R. Like there's drinking. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
True.
But you're right. I think it's a perfect fit for the holiday season. May, December, I don't feel like is the family-friendly film that people need to run out and see over the holiday season. But I still say it's worth a watch. So check it out. Okay, Chris. Well, that's going to wrap it up. As I said, we had 2 big reviews, so we're not going to do anything else today. When we get together next time, I mean, again, we're in the happy part of the season right now, so we should have some other good films to be discussing and reviewing here in the next several weeks. But if anybody wants to talk to us about either of these 2 films, May, December, or The Holdovers, their own thoughts or opinions, how can they do so?
They can send an email to info@footcandle.org. Al and I are also on Twitter at FootCandleFilm is where we do post stuff for the film podcast, but also the Film Society. We're on Facebook at Foot Candle Film Society. Instagram and Threads, we're at Foot Candle Film. We've talked about star ratings. We do that over on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. Do us a favor, mentioning star ratings. On the service that you get your podcast on, do us a favor and leave a star rating or write a review. Share with friends because it helps us reach more listeners, and we would appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Foot Candle Films, and we will look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.